On February 1st, 2004, while nearly 90 million Americans watched the Super Bowl, an 11-year-old girl walked 1 mile toward home in Sarasota, Florida. She never arrived. Within hours, investigators would review surveillance footage that captured something almost unthinkable: the moment she was taken. But identifying the man in the video would require more than technology. It would demand something far more painful. Carlie Jane Brucia was born on March 16, 1992, on Long Island, New York. After her parents divorced, she moved with her mother Susan to Sarasota, Florida, but remained close to her family back north, visiting regularly during holidays. She lived with her mother, stepfather Stephen, and younger half-brother. Teachers at McIntosh Middle School described her as energetic, sweet, and charming. The school principal called her a shining light. She sang in the choir, participated in sports, and was known for greeting friends with warm hugs and genuine smiles. Sarasota in early 2004 was a growing coastal community. February 1st fell on Super Bowl Sunday. Most families were indoors watching the game. The streets were quiet. Carlie had spent the previous night at a friend's house about 1 mile from her own home. Around 6:15 p.m. on February 1st, Carlie left her friend's house to walk home. She wanted to watch the Super Bowl with her family. The friend's mother called Susan to confirm it was acceptable for Carlie to walk alone. Susan said no. She had not given permission for Carlie to walk along Bee Ridge Road by herself. Susan discussed it with her husband Stephen, and he immediately got in the car to pick her up. Stephen drove through the neighborhood searching for Carlie. The streets were empty. Most residents were watching the game indoors. He could not find her anywhere. Roughly 1 hour later, at 7:15 p.m., a 911 call came in. Carlie Brucia was officially reported missing. Police were dispatched immediately. Officers arrived at Carlie's home and began interviewing family members and friends. They went door to door asking if anyone had seen or heard anything. They spoke with the friend Carlie had stayed with and her mother. The friend's mother explained that Carlie had been slightly upset the day before due to an argument between her mother and stepfather. Carlie had wanted to leave early to spend time with Susan. The search effort expanded throughout the night. Police worked until 3 a.m., but found no sign of Carlie. By that point, she had been missing for 12 hours. When her classmates arrived at school the next morning, she was not there. Once Carlie failed to show up for school, police brought in search dogs. A bloodhound named Ruby tracked Carlie's scent using one of her pillowcases. The trail led to the area behind a car wash called Evie's Car Wash, located at 4715 Bee Ridge Road. There, the scent stopped. Police secured the area and spoke with the car wash owner, Mike Evanoff. He told them the property had motion-activated security cameras. Officers reviewed the footage. One camera showed the busy main road and an empty parking lot. Another angle showed nothing suspicious. Then they checked the camera position behind the car wash. The recording was time-stamped 6:21 p.m., the exact time Carlie disappeared. On screen was a young girl wearing a red t-shirt, blue jeans, and a pink backpack. That matched what Carlie had been wearing. Then a man appeared. He was approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall with dark hair and a visible tattoo on his arm. He wore a mechanic-style work uniform with a name tag. The name was too blurry to read. He stopped in front of the girl. They spoke briefly. Then he grabbed her by the arm and led her away. The clip lasted only a few seconds, but it was clear Carlie was in serious danger. Carlie's stepfather, Stephen, was asked to come to the police station. He explained that Carlie would never disappear without calling. She always kept her parents updated on her whereabouts. Phone records confirmed Stephen's timeline, and he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. Stephen then mentioned something significant. While driving along Bee Ridge Road searching for Carlie, he had noticed a red pickup truck driving back and forth in the area. The same truck pulled into the car wash. When Stephen arrived at the friend's house where Carlie had left from, there was a red pickup truck parked nearby. Stephen was certain it was the same vehicle. The man in the surveillance video wore a mechanic-style uniform similar to what tow truck drivers wear. The owner of a red truck, a man named Ron, lived at the friend's house and had been there that evening. He was immediately brought in for questioning. Ron explained that Carlie had spent Saturday night at his house. He woke Sunday morning, got ready for work, and left. He did not see Carlie at any point during the day. Officers showed him the surveillance photo of Carlie and the man near the car wash. Ron said it was not him. He offered to verify his whereabouts and cooperate fully. Police contacted Ron's employer and confirmed he was at work during the time of the abduction. His time card supported this. Officers searched his truck and found nothing. Ron was officially ruled out. Investigators reviewed the surveillance footage again, looking for additional details. When they rewound slightly, they noticed something new. A pale yellow 1992 Buick Century station wagon had pulled into the parking lot 3 minutes before Carlie was taken. The Buick pulled back onto Bee Ridge Road, slowed down near the car wash, then turned in. This gave investigators a new lead. The search continued. Missing child flyers were posted throughout the community. The mayor called Carlie the child of Sarasota. Carlie's mother, Susan, spoke at a press conference. She said, "I love you. I have my phone on at all times. I'm begging, I'm pleading. Please help bring my daughter home." Her father added, "Carlie, if you can hear this, your mom is at home and she's waiting for you." 2 days had passed since Carlie was taken. A woman watching the news saw the surveillance video from the car wash. She called her husband over. They both recognized the man immediately. It was her former business partner, she told investigators. "I worked with him at a repair shop, so I knew exactly how he looked. The sneakers, the haircut, the way he walked. When I saw him reach toward that little girl, it hit me. That's the same way he used to reach for his tools. I recognized it instantly." Her husband called police and provided the man's name and address to Detective Vincent Rivera. Detective Rivera and another officer drove to the address in an unmarked vehicle and met 2 additional officers. A neighbor confirmed someone was home. Officers knocked on the front door. No one answered. One officer called a supervisor and learned the man they were looking for was on probation. He had violated probation conditions twice in the past but had not been sent back to jail. They contacted his probation officer and asked them to come to the house. About 45 minutes later, a woman arrived. She was the man's sister. She agreed to go inside, call him out, and have him speak with officers. He came outside. Joseph Peter Smith, 37 years old, a father of 3, originally from Brooklyn, unemployed at the time. Joseph Smith had a long criminal record. He had at least 13 arrests in the state dating back to 1993, including charges related to heroin possession and prescription drug fraud. He had served 17 months in custody. 8 days after his release, he was arrested again for cocaine possession and sentenced to 3 years of probation. In the past, he had been arrested, charged, and later acquitted in a case involving kidnapping and false imprisonment. Recently, he had violated probation terms again, but had been released anyway. The woman who recognized him from the news was not the first to mention his name. Out of more than 800 tips police received after releasing the surveillance footage, several people had called in saying they believed the man in the video was Joseph Smith. Joseph drove a brown Lincoln, not the Buick station wagon seen on Bee Ridge Road. While officers worked to identify the owner of the Buick, 2 detectives sat down with Joseph Smith. They asked what he had been doing on the day Carlie disappeared and whether he had been at the car wash. He said he had not. One officer asked to examine his tattoos. Joseph asked why they were there and why they were talking to him. They explained they were investigating a child abduction. He said he did not understand. They showed him a still image from the surveillance video. "That looks like me, but it's not me," he said. Joseph agreed to let officers search his car and the room he rented. He appeared cooperative and not nervous. During the search of his room, nothing connecting him to Carlie was found. However, officers discovered a mechanic-style work uniform with a name badge on the chest. They searched his vehicle and found drug paraphernalia inside. Joseph was arrested for violating probation and for possession of drug paraphernalia. While the brown Lincoln was being searched, one of the homeowners where Joseph rented his room arrived at the property. Her name was Naomi. She was driving a yellow Buick station wagon. Officers asked if she knew where Joseph had been on the day Carlie was last seen. Naomi said that around 6:30 p.m., Joseph had been on the phone talking to his estranged wife. That statement gave him an alibi. Once again, investigators were back at square one. Just a few hours later, new information surfaced. Naomi's husband Jeff came to the police station. He was the one who actually drove that Buick station wagon. He told detectives his wife had remembered things wrong. Jeff explained that Joseph had asked to borrow the car around 6 p.m. on February 1st. Joseph said he would only be gone 15 minutes. Jeff agreed. When Jeff woke at 6:30 a.m. the next morning, the car was gone. At 7:30 a.m., Joseph returned. Jeff asked where he had been. Joseph looked clean, well-rested, and happy. Jeff said the way Joseph acted was very strange. Jeff realized something had happened inside the car. Things had been moved around, and the back seat was folded down. He turned the Buick over to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office for forensic testing. With this new information from Jeff, Joseph's whereabouts during the critical time could no longer be confirmed. It was now clear he was the one driving the station wagon. Joseph was read his Miranda rights. He asked for a lawyer. On the evening of February 4th, Joseph's brother John went to the police station and spoke with the FBI. He explained that he and Joseph were not on great terms. On the evening of February 1st, the same day Carlie was abducted, Joseph had called him around 8 p.m. They did not speak the following day. John and his girlfriend were watching TV when the news aired the surveillance video of Carlie's abduction. The face, the hair, the mechanic's uniform. John recognized the man immediately. His girlfriend did too. What stood out to her was the way he walked. After back surgery, Joseph's gait had changed, and it was unmistakable. Later that same night, around 11 p.m., Joseph showed up at John's house looking like he might have been under the influence of something. John said he did not let his brother inside because in the past, Joseph had repeatedly stared inappropriately at his girlfriend's teenage daughter. Even though Joseph wore his usual mechanic's uniform, he was not wearing his regular sneakers. Instead, he had on boots he had never worn before. The only thing Joseph said was, "Do you want to talk about something?" John said no, and shut the door. The next day when Joseph showed up at work, he was acting strangely. He kept washing his hands over and over, even though they were already clean. He also told his boss he might suddenly need to leave the state urgently. John told officers, "I don't have any direct proof. It's just he looks like that man. He walks the same way. And the more I watch that video and then look at him, the more I see an exact match." Investigators knew they needed a confession from Joseph if they wanted any chance of finding Carlie. John told them straight up that if his brother was guilty, he would never admit it. "He'll take this to the grave," he said. "If it was him, you're not going to get the truth out of him." He advised the FBI to focus on building more evidence instead. Detectives reached out to NASA for help enhancing the surveillance footage from the car wash, trying to make out what was written on the name badge. They were able to do it. The name on the badge read Joe. The arrest report stated that Joseph had deliberately and strategically maneuvered the Buick station wagon, planning his movements in advance to hide his actions and position himself close to Carlie. Joseph spoke privately with his brother and their mother. About 1.5 hours later, John came back out and said Joseph had come close to confessing, but never actually said anything. Neither John nor their mother were questioned further by officers. No surveillance was placed on them. After leaving the station that evening, John called the FBI and said, "I'm guessing you've already heard. What am I supposed to do now?" The FBI agents were confused. They had no idea what he was talking about. John believed his phone was being tapped. It was not. That is when everything clicked. Joseph had called his brother and said something about Carlie. John, thinking the call was being monitored, was now calling back to pass that information along. 3 officers, including 2 FBI agents, immediately headed to John's house. John gave them exact directions. 6221, Proctor Road near Interstate 75. At around 1 a.m., in thick brush in a field behind Central Church of Christ, Carlie's body was found. She was unclothed below the waist except for a single sock on her right foot. There was a deep ligature mark around her neck. FBI agents took John back to the police station for another interview. He admitted he had lied earlier when he said Joseph had not said anything. In reality, Joseph had told him, "I'm sorry for what I did to you." After that, their mother left the room, and Joseph kept talking. He said that on the day of the abduction, he had taken a substance he believed was cocaine, and everything afterward was a blur to him. Joseph never directly said she was dead. John said it for him. "Okay, Joe, she's dead. Fine. Where is she?" After leaving the police station, John and his mother drove to the church to look for her, but did not find anything. Later, Joseph told them she was actually in the field behind the church. John told agents he had not mentioned any of this earlier because he did not believe what Joseph was saying and because Joseph never directly confessed to killing Carlie. He said he went out there purely out of curiosity. According to John, if he had found Carlie alive, his plan was to set her free, give her money, take a photo, sell it to the media, and use that money to hire a lawyer for Joseph. Eventually, Joseph confessed to sexually assaulting Carlie inside the vehicle. Later, he admitted he had raped her. The Sarasota medical examiner examined Carlie's body. He determined she had been dragged into the field and strangled from behind using ligature strangulation. Marks on her wrists showed she had been restrained. Joseph's DNA was found in semen on her t-shirt. Investigators stated the statistical chance of a random DNA match from a Caucasian male was 1 in 32 quintillion. 2 of Carlie's hairs were found inside the Buick. Investigators also recovered 7 fibers from the vehicle's interior that matched fibers from Carlie's red t-shirt. Joseph had thrown her clothing and pink backpack into different dumpsters. Sheriff Bill Balkwell drove to Susan's home and told her what had happened. Susan screamed, "He killed my daughter. He killed my baby." Sheriff Balkwell addressed the public. His voice was shaking as he said, "The body of a beautiful 11-year-old girl, Carlie Brucia, has been found. Joseph Smith is under arrest for the abduction and murder of Carlie." Friends, family, and community members who had taken part in the search gathered near the church to lay flowers. McIntosh Middle School announced it would open its doors to the community and offer psychological support to anyone affected. The community held a vigil outside her home. Banners read, "We love you, Carlie." Her father Joe thanked everyone who had helped search. The case turned on several critical moments. The motion-activated surveillance camera at the car wash captured the abduction in real time, providing investigators with a visual record of the crime. When Stephen mentioned the red pickup truck and officers ruled out Ron, investigators faced a dead end until they re-examined the footage and noticed the yellow Buick. Jeff's decision to come forward and correct his wife's statement eliminated Joseph's alibi and confirmed he had been driving the Buick during the critical window. John's belief that his phone was being tapped led him to call the FBI, inadvertently revealing that Joseph had disclosed Carlie's location. Each of these moments shifted the investigation from uncertainty to resolution. The broader investigative failures also shaped the outcome. Joseph Smith had violated probation twice before Carlie's murder, but was not sent back to jail. He had been arrested 8 days after a prior release and placed on drug offender probation instead of being incarcerated. These decisions allowed him to remain free. The system's failure to enforce consequences became a focal point for Carlie's father and advocates who sought legislative change. Joseph Peter Smith was charged with kidnapping, sexual assault, and first-degree murder. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The car wash surveillance video, forensic evidence recovered from the Buick, proof he had been driving the station wagon at the time, DNA found on Carlie's clothing, and the fact that he directed investigators to the exact location of her body. On December 1, 2004, a jury voted 10-2 in favor of sentencing Joseph Smith to death by lethal injection. On March 15th of the following year, the judge officially handed down the death sentence. Joseph filed several appeals challenging his sentence. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court declared the Florida law unconstitutional because the death penalty could be imposed without a unanimous jury verdict. In 2018, the Florida Supreme Court vacated Smith's death sentence. It was reinstated in 2020. Nearly a year later, the Florida Supreme Court ordered a new sentencing hearing. A circuit court would only consider Smith's sentence, not his conviction. On July 26, 2021, Joseph Smith died at Union Correctional Institution. He was 55 years old. The cause of death was reported as liver cancer, though other sources cited complications from hepatitis C. The Florida State Attorney's Office said, "While nothing can ever bring Carlie back, we are grateful that her family, her friends, and the entire Sarasota community can finally have a sense of closure." Carlie's father Joe had pushed for legislative action. Representative Catherine Harris introduced a proposal known as Carlie's Law, which would have required federal offenders to be taken back into custody if they committed another serious felony. The law faced opposition due to cost and was never passed. Joseph Smith was also considered a suspect in the 2000 murder of 25-year-old Tara Riley, whose body was found in a retention pond behind a Walmart in Florida. He was never officially charged in that case, and it remains unsolved. Carlie's mother, Susan, passed away on March 26, 2010, at the age of 47. The community memorial garden created in Carlie's honor at Central Church of Christ continues to stand. Like, comment, and subscribe to The Evidence Room for fact-based true crime documentaries.